So yeah, the bid starts really in earnest from very early in the new year. The primary objectives initially are to identify through the business plan some quick wins for our levy payers to make sure that they are seeing a return on their investment very early on. They'll be presented to the board at the end of January for approval, and once approval's been granted through the board, the levy payers and the users of the city centre, businesses, residents and visitors will start to see the bid on the streets delivering projects. And the bid it's made up of 4 pillars. We like to call them 4 pillars of success, and they are clean, safe, alive and promoted. They are very much the heart and soul of the business plan, and through the 4 pillars we'll be having some projects underneath each one of those pillars. So as an example, clean, obviously the council will continue to do what they do on a day-to-day basis. The bid will provide additionality, so it'll be looking at hot washing empty doorways, removing fly posting off of windows, a programmed longer term strategy for removal of chewing gum, which is very expensive, but everybody realises it's a blight on the high street. And down to things like shop wrapping, empty units, maybe a unit's been empty for a while, the bid will come along and they call it shop wrapping, put a nice attractive vinyl on there with the letting agent's details within the window, rather than the traditional to let boards that look really quite unsightly at times down a row of shops that may be vacant. Going on to safe, obviously we're working very closely with partners within the city centre to look at how we can increase, or should I say, change people's mindsets. It's very much people perceive that the city centre is not safe, which is not true at all. It is a safe city centre. However, perception is that it's not. So we need to first of all start changing mindsets. And easy ways to do that, an example of this is lighting. When a street is light and it feels welcoming, it also feels safe. So a good example of that is to look at additional lighting in areas that maybe historically feel unsafe. And the conservation areas, the city centre conservation areas are quite dark because of tall Victorian buildings, the traditional use of sodium lighting to be sympathetic to that streetscape. So how can the bid work with those areas to increase the lighting while maintaining sympathy with the area that we're in, such as the conservation areas? So then there's the alive pillar. Alive is very much about animating the streets, bringing the streets to life and making them feel much more enjoyable as you're walking through on your daily commute, or if you're here for an event. So we're looking at a range of events that will complement potentially the council events if they're putting some on, but also bespoke events for bid levy payers and by bid levy payers. So possibly looking at something like Mardi Gras Bradford, working with the team down on Ivegate. Ivegate's now developing as a destination, and we'll see that continue to develop. So maybe we do a Mardi Gras Bradford down Ivegate in conjunction with the businesses. But then looking at a whole range of events throughout the whole year that will cater for all the family and all demographics. So I've mentioned the evening and nighttime economy kind of there, but do we put a great big beach, a giant beach at the side of the mirror pool, and we have a Bradford by the sea by the bid? So all sorts of ideas to be worked up just yet, but Alive will be very visible, very present, and we'll bring in the footfall, and the events will be strategically placed within the city centre demise to drive footfall to our levy payers, support their businesses, and then obviously they will then get involved with us to support the bid when events are being put on. So I think Alive will be very, very clear, and there'll be lots of bid branding, and people will realise the bid, they're here and they are delivering that project. Promoted is probably one of the most difficult ones to explain. Clean is very easy, you make something that's dirty clean. Promoted is very much more about getting the Bradford brand firstly recognised as a quality brand. Bradford City Centre's come on leaps and bounds over the last 3 to 5 years probably since the introduction of City Park and then the Broadway Shopping Centre. Going forward, we've got the NEC obviously opening in 2 years' time. We've got the new markets opening on Darley Street. So we need to make sure people regionally, nationally and internationally realise that the Bradford brand is a strong brand for investment, for students, overseas students, promoting the university to overseas students, and also, making sure that when we've got events on, so we talked about Alive, we talked about IVGA, that we promote these events and make sure people know about them. One of the things we hear quite often is, I didn't know it was on until it was over, which is quite, it's quite painful to hear at times when there's been so much work done to put an event on. So make sure people know about Bradford and its potential, the investment potential, the events, how clean it is, how safe it is, and how alive it is. So the income for is raised by the businesses themselves. They decided at ballot that they wanted a bid, Business Improvement District. They put the money in, it's their money, it's how they want to spend it. So the business plan's really clear and we can deliver on the projects within the business plan. Not a problem at all. What we need from the businesses is buy-in, and very much use an example of North Parade. When the bid put on an event on North Parade, the street party, we want the businesses to put something additional than they would normally do. So help us help them is probably a key message. And also when there's big events on in the city centre generally, it may be BID that have put the event on, it may be in conjunction with the council or with another event organiser, that they get involved, they promote it, they actually do special offers maybe if they're a service, and feel ownership of the bid and feel it's theirs. It's their money, they've agreed the business plan, they voted on it, we're here just to deliver it on their behalf. They need to be talking to us, engaging with us, but taking ownership and actually feeling a pride of the city centre and what the Business Improvement District is there to do. I think people will start to see the bid really in action around about Easter. Obviously we're kicking off in January 2019, and there's a lot of work to do to agree the short term, the quick projects that'll take a couple of months. I'd like to think that around Easter, early March maybe, late March up to Easter time, roughly, we'll start to see the bid on the streets. And it's a phrase I use, on the streets, but it's in people's faces. They realise the bid's here, they can see the benefits to the businesses, and the bid is for the levy payers. The 630 businesses roughly paying a levy. They want to see a return on investment, they want to know what their money's being spent on, and if it's sat and they don't see anything at all for a year, rightly so, there's going to be some challenges, absolutely rightly so, and the operating board will be challenging the chairs. They're extremely strong chairs, they'll be challenging us, and what are you actually delivering? So on the streets, March roughly, we'll really start to see the Bradford brand out there on the streets of Bradford City Centre. Getting to the end of the first year, I think we would be, because at end of year one we will be presenting back to the operating board and, to the levy payers. They all want to know where their money's gone for that year. So we'll be looking at what's worked, what's been successful. And to me, if we've had between 6 and 8 strong events that have driven footfall into the city centre, that would be one marker of success. We'll be speaking to the businesses and finding out from them, obviously, did it increase your footfall, spend, dwell time, all these key performance indicators on measuring success. So a few events, strong events throughout the year would be a one marker. Looking at the safe, we can't particularly have a massive impact on crime statistics because we're not employing police officers. What we can do is have a look at having ambassadors potentially at key stations and points in the city centre when we've got a big event on, so Aladdin at the moment at the Alhambra. So a marker for that would be the interaction with the members of the public and how many interactions we've had and the feedback that we get from members of the public. So they've come into the event, they've parked up or they've come off the train and they felt safe when they went to the venue and they had a great time and gone home again. So that kind of thing. Looking at the real clear one is footfall. is looking at, has the city centre footfall increased over the first 12 months of the bid, and press and PR, and that's key obviously, looking at how people's perceptions are changing. Now we have seen a step change in perception over the last 2 years, 3 years. That needs to continue. You know, we're still not where we need to be for footfall, and not where we need to be for the perception of Bradford. So perception changes as well would be a measure of success. At the end of the 5-year term, there's a lot of work to do between then and now, obviously. But at the end of the 5-year term, the city centre will be different. We're absolutely, we know that. The NEC Odeon will be in place, number 1 City Park, there'll be more Grade A office space in the city centre. The Foster Square train station refurbishment will have been completed. The Northern Powerhouse rail and the interchange work will be closer, possibly not delivered. We'll have the city village at the top of town, and we'll have the new markets down Darley Street. So they're all massive projects that are being obviously worked up through the local authority and West Yorkshire Combined Authority. The bid needs to be playing a part of that and being a key stakeholder within that, and be a lobbying representative for the stakeholders and the levy payers. And at the end of the 5-year term, the city centre is probably, in an ideal world, going to be much, much cleaner, and civic pride will be increased by that. It will feel safer because of the projects we delivered over the 5-year term. The events will be embedded and growing, bearing in mind this is year 1, year 2, 3, 4 and 5 will grow and embed. And then the city centre, the perception of the city centre will be much more recognised as a venue, a location, a destination than maybe we currently are now. 5 years is a long time, but it'll go in a blink of an eye. The real measure of success, because at 5 years we go out for a reballot to see if the businesses want to continue with the bid, will be the reballot, and if we get a strong yes vote, which we expect we will 5 years from now, then we've done okay for the first 5 years.